So there's a Shabbos for the tag. The tag chevra. I grew up. Tag was a girls' school. I grew up Torah Academy of Barakaway. It was called Tag. But in Baruch Hashem, there's a movement called the Tag movement, where people are making sure that people are putting filters and properly protecting their families, themselves and their families. That there's tremendous access, incredible access exists to all different ideas and all different things that we can access, and to make sure that it's safe for us and our children. And it's interesting, we're zeich in the community to have a Yid, a tremendously special person, right, Meyerfeld, and he's the head of the TAG group. And I expressed to him my concern. I sat down, I had a meeting about over a year ago, and I expressed all this talk about filters and this amazing focus on filter and blockages. And I expressed that there's a tremendous need for closer relationships, that the filters is one part. We need to put equal airtime to connection, relationship. We have to be closer to our children. Avada, we have to be more, we have to physically touch our children more. We have to have honest conversation with our children. And I expressed that has to be a response. And he told me something fascinating. He told me from Matisyahu Solomon, and who was a big part of the TAG movement, that the word of all the filtering and all that we're doing, he said a guy was in his office. He told me a guy was in his office getting this filter, and the guy said, I don't get it. I have at work, I could do this. I know how to get around these filters. Like what? He was like talking to him, what am I doing? And he explained to him from him at the Matisyahu Solomon that the point of the filters and going to TAG, which I hold stark in the community, we have a good percentage, but we have to get everybody to go, everybody. When I understood what he was saying, it became much more meaningful to me. He said the point is that we're responding to something. The point is that we're thinking about the sugya. He said, I'm aware there's many details in this sugya that we have so much access, that the walls of that used to separate us have fallen down. So there has to be a response, a thoughtful, thought out. Of course, he said, of course, part of the response, somebody runs to the filter place, understands that I have to respond to the situation. So of course, a huge part of the response is talking more to my children, being more emotionally connected, involved, part of their lives. But of course, he said that's exactly the intention of going to the filter and going to TAG offices, is saying that I'm thinking about the situation for my wife, for my children, for me, and I'm dealing with the situation. If somebody goes to the TAG for himself, to the TAG offices, and he has nisyonis and he doesn't ask himself, hey, what can I do? Maybe I have to resolve childhood traumas. Maybe I have to start working out my own. He said that the point of the offices where people should go, they're announcing that I'm responding, I'm seeing situations, nisyonis, all different matzavim that happen, and I'm responding, I'm thinking about it. This matzav, there's a whole generation of people, and we didn't know. The walls came down fast, there was access, and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people were impacted a lot. Even if somebody was in a home that didn't have one computer or one device, but a kid in the class, somebody in the class had devices, even if that kid in the class didn't show that boy one thing, but his behavior and his curiosity and his conversation was a certain way, it has impact. And the word of this TAG movement and people going there and putting filters on their phones and is saying that I'm addressing a situation. The same guy who goes to the TAG office, the expectation The absolute expectation is he's thinking about the sugya. He went to the office after all. He's that kind of guy. He's responding to a situation. And they're hoping such a guy touches his kid more often. He gives more hugs to his kids. They're hoping such a guy is more in touch with his own emotions, is more in touch with his kids' emotions, is bonding in a deeper, more healthier way. It's all part of what Reb Matisyahu Solomon had in mind in this whole movement of Tag. I was very energized when I heard that. That gave me a lot of, that just, of course, our greats understand the situation. I want to encourage, certainly we should put the filters on that we need to. Of course, to make every shmirah that we can to be safe and healthy for ourselves, for our families. And of course, we're thinking about the sugya and anything in that sugya. In a world where there's a lot of exposure, in a world where there's access to all different things that we're walking forward with confidence, with happiness, with a plan, with an attachment to Taiv, it's certainly a world with a lot of access. So I wanted to encourage, this Shabbos is a Shabbos. I won't be zeichet to be with my friends this Shabbos, but I wanted to encourage in each of our shuls in the community, there'll be speeches and gatherings about this, our own thoughts about situations. We're raising families in very unique times when we know on our kids, there's something very cool about it, that we know in our kids there's access to all different things. I think about this a lot in yeshiva, that the average kid has access. It's interesting. Doctors talk about this. People go to doctors now and they know a lot. Could be very, very bad. Your doctor will yell at you. You come, any symptoms we have, we look up and we freak out. You're looking up all about a pimple on the arm, and you read what it could be, what it should be, what it might be. You start getting heart palpitations, and you come. It's an age of a lot of information and access to a lot of knowledge, and that affects. Must be fascinating being a doctor today, with people coming, knowing so much. And we live in an age, there's a lot of information. I have seen Bachram know things, know certain types of kfira, that a guy who was struggling 20 years ago, 15 years ago, didn't know anything about it. A kid today is struggling, he's not feeling good in yeshiva, he has access to all different ideas and thoughts, complicated stuff. So on the one hand, you could say, oh my goodness, we're fighting so much, they're so difficult. I actually appreciate that it's not what we have is the emes. Torah is the emes. A life of Avodas Hashem is the emes. I appreciate that we can have all the access in the world, not to be nishtaimim. We have the goods in Torah and Avodas Hashem. We have the goods, so we have to plug in, start. The word of serving Hashem is not because nobody knew better. It's not because nobody knows anything else. So you saw this video, this apikairis, yemamish nishtaimim. Let's learn Rashi. Let's weiter learn Rashi competes more than competes. But avada, we have to have a response. To ignore it and pretend, there has to be people that are well aware of what's going on. Just the awareness. I've told so many people talk, are their kids safe? It could be years ago if your kid was miserable and he's in some school and he's miserable and he's surviving, he's not safe today. If he's not plugged in, I met with an old friend and his son. For the last week I've been handling with an old friend. And I was talking a lot to him. If your son's not plugged into something stark, if he's not excited about a mahalach and ruchnius, if he doesn't have something that resonates by him stark, he's in tremendous sakana today. And Baruch Hashem, we're at an age and a stage when we have no choice but to plug in stark, the Yiddishkeit. All this should be part of the thoughts. Go to your tag office. Get your phone filtered and these tzaddikim, but this is what they're saying to us. They're not saying filter. They should literally, at the tag office, they should ask, are you happy? Are your kids happy? But that's what they're saying. They just can't discuss every area. That it's interesting. Reb Meyerfeld told me, mamish, what Reb Matisyahu Solomon had in mind. He said a guy goes to the office, he's hoping, a guy's thinking, hey, there's a lot of, if he thought that the whole answer is a filter, so Stam, guys, the filter was part of what a person could be mishtadel to say, I'm handling the sugya. That's what he expressed here, Matisyo. I thought that was, the Matisyo doesn't need a haskama from a Katan Kamaini, but it was just to hear the machshavos of a tzaddik and what they're thinking, the profoundness of their ideas, and all this he had in mind with the filters. So of course, this is something we have to push and encourage and make sure we're all making moves to ensure ourselves and our mishpachas stay tremendously loyal to Hashem. I've spoken in the parasha. It speaks about Shmiras Habris. It speaks about Shmiras Habris. There's the topic, what Shmiras Habris is, as Brisis Shmar, to guard Hashem's bris. So Shmiras Habris has taken on, people speak about what Shmiras Habris. The ikar of Shmiras Habris means that a person's a loyalist to Hashem. A bris is a treaty between us and Hashem. And the ikar vard of Shmiras Habris is when a person's loyal even when nobody sees. He's a loyalist to Hashem through and through and through. That's Shmiras Habris. Shmiras Habris is you're alone somewhere and you're davening mincha and you're putting an erlich of mincha. That's this person who's Shomer Habris. That's the topic has taken on all different meanings by people. They're pratim. This is the ikar nekud of being zaych al brischa shechasamta b'bsarenu, to have a bris milah on our body. And the Shomer Habris is a loyalist to Hashem. I remember years ago we were zaych in our city. Rev Ratman, your Rosh Hashiva, Rev Ratman Zatzal, this wonderful prince. Rev Ratman said a eulogy in Waterbury on his Rebbe, Rev Kreisworth. He said a eulogy in this city. You remember Yitzchak? He spoke and he said a eulogy on his Rebbe, Rev Kreisworth. Now, I remember what he said. And he said there was the public person, Rev Kreisworth. And he said, I saw him functioning in the public arena. He was a big, tremendous Rosh Hashiva, Talmud Chacham, a Baal Chesed, and he was very much in the public arena. But he said when he prayed and nobody saw him, he prayed the same way. He said he was the same man out of the limelight also. He described this, that's a person who's Shomer Habris. That he's true to who he was, even when nobody's around, nobody will see. But he's true to his commitment to Hashem. That's a Shomer Habris. At times we can cut corners, we can do things that are unethical in all different manners and say, who's going to see? But the person Hashem sees. And he's a loyalist to Hashem. That's a Shomer Habris. A guy at his work who can play some games and take some dollars he doesn't deserve. And won't get caught. He won't get caught out. But he says as a Rebbeinu Shalom. That's a Shomer Habris. Somebody who's true to his commitments. Even I grew up, I read a lot of stories of the Holocaust, and from the most moving are the stories of people in such dark and difficult circumstances, and they were loyal to Hashem. And nobody would mark it, nobody would know, but they were a Shomer Habris. They stayed true to a relationship. That's the Ikar Pirush of Shomer Habris. So, we should all be Zayched. There's a lot of walls have come down and a lot of access to all different stuff. We want to be people who are Shomer Habris, who are true to our promises, to be loyalists to Hashem. We want mishpachas that are true to it, and then we have to ask ourselves in all different ways, what are the eights? We go to that office and we do that. We announce we're people who want to be loyalists to Hashem. And we're going to do everything it takes. I'm going to think about it. We're going to plan out with our mishpachas how we can have true homes. That's the idea of this Heilige movement called Tag. At the beginning of Parshas Vayera, the Malachim come to Avram Avinu and it calls them Shloisha Anashim. Calls them 3 men come to Avram Avinu. When they come to light, it says Vayavo Shnei HaMalachim. It calls them angels. By Avram Avinu, when they appear, it calls them Shloisha Anashim, 3 men. And when the same 3 angels come to light, it calls them Malachim. Vayavo Shnei HaMalachim. Only 2 of them come to light, but the 3 of them, 1 drops out. The 3 of them come to Avram Avinu, it calls them Anashim. When they come to light, they're called Malachim. So Rashi asks the Kasha, Shnei Malachim. Says Rashi, Earlier it calls them Anashim. Says Rashi, K'shahaisa Shechina ima'im, it calls them Anashim. When the Shechina is there with them, it calls them Anashim. When they don't have the Shechina, they're called Malachim. When the Shechina is with them, it calls them Anashim. So I saw some learn Pshat, what's going on here? So some learn Pshat that when the Shechina is there, Klape the Shechina, they're called Anashim. You don't call them angels. Everything pales Klape the Shechina. So there, the Shechina, when they came to Avram Avinu, is Vayerei Love Hashem. Hashem was there. So Klape Hashem, it calls them Anashim. When they came to light alone, it calls them angels. They lose their title when they're in front of Hashem. That's how some learn. But Rav Wolbe didn't learn that way in this Rashi. Rav Wolbe learned Pshat in the Rashi that when they were with the Shechina, so then they're higher than Malachim. They're called Anashim. A human being is higher than an angel. That's what Rav Wolbe learned in the Rashi. Pasuk Pshat. They're called angel. With the Shechina, then they're Anashim. They're higher than angels. They're called the Bechina higher than angels when they're with the Shechina. In the presence of the Shechina, then they're already Anashim. When they're not in the Shechina, they're called Malachim. They're with the Shechina, they're called Anashim. It's interesting. I don't know if it pumps everybody's esteem, like we're called Anashim are higher than angels. So here we've spoken about angels, that there's a whole realm that lives with Hashem, but the human being who with his decision chooses Hashem, the human being who with all the other things, there's a lot of human being could choose. We go and put filters. There are other things you can choose. We have choice and we have decisions to make. And the human being chooses. He's higher than an angel. An angel, this is what he has. This is what he knows. There is no other choice. And the Adam that has shaykh to choice is higher than an angel. To the point that when the Malach's in the presence of the Shechina, we call him Anashim. He merits the title when he's around the Shechina. That's what Rav Wolbe learned, Pashup Pshat and Rashi, that when the Shechina is there, so then he gets a higher title. The angel now, we call him Anashim. He's in the presence of the Shechina. Amazing Rav Wolbe. Amazing chizuk about a human being with all our frailty. And everything, but a human being is a higher bechina than a malachim. The human being is the one with his choice, who chooses to serve Hashem. It's a higher bechina. L'maisa, so the angels, they come to light, and we're taught about light's madrega. Light's a Talmud of Avram Avinu, a wayward Talmud, but a Talmud nonetheless. And it says Vayar light. Very similar lashon to the beginning of the parsha, when Avram Avinu sees, Vayiseina Vayar, and here it says light as well, Vayar light. Could just say the angels come to light, Vayakim L'krasim, it says Vayar light, light sees them. So Rashi says he had the minig of his Rebbe, of Avram, Mi Beis Avram Lamad. He learned from the house of Avram, Lachzer al Archim. He was looking for guests. Vayar Light teaches us about his Mahalach HaChaim, that like Avram Avinu, he was pursuing kindness. And he was Machzer al Archim. He was looking for guests. He had a tremendous bikush for kindness, for chesed. He lived in a country that killed people for doing chesed. It was against the laws of the country. It was penalized by a death sentence, but he was a Talmud of Avram Avinu. And Vayar Light, he was zoching, he was seeking chesed. He was looking, Pasha, to do chesed. As such, he was a Talmud of Avram Avinu. The Ramban describes a little later on of Light's tremendous madrega of chesed, Vayar Light. He's mamish like the Rebbe Avram, that he's zoching, he's seeking out to do chesed. He learns from Avram Avinu that a person, Pashut, is born to do kindness for somebody else. The line of Reb Chaim Volozhin, Le'nivra Adam Elohei Lachriti. We're born to do good for somebody else, and as such, Light is looking for Archim, Vayar Light. This teaches us, Mi Beis Avram Lamad, the practice of light. He was looking for opportunities for kindness. That was what Light was doing. These Malachim come to Light's house, and all of a sudden the city's ready to lynch Light. And terem yishkavu va'anshir anshe stoim nasabel abayis minar v'adzakin kol amikatza. Everybody gathers against Light to kill him. And they say, give us the men, bring them out. Send your guests out. And Light goes and faces this crowd. He closes the door behind him and he faces the crowd. And he says, no way. But then he makes like a very prasta offer. The Ramban speaks out. Hine nali shtei banais shelo yadu ish aitzia na esen aleichem vasulam k'toy beinechem. He does something wild. He's protecting his guests. But he sends out his daughters. He says, I'm willing to send out my daughters. That you could do what you want to my daughters. And the Ramban speaks about that to Light. This wasn't somehow his daughters doing immoral activities. This wasn't, Light was willing, send out his daughters. Hine nali shtei banais shelo yadu ish aitzia na esen aleichem v'asulam k'toy beinechem rak la'anashim el al tasu davar ki al kein bo b'tzel karasi. The Ramban already speaks out about the princess of Light, about Light's tremendous mistake, his willingness to send out his own daughters. Rav Wolbe spoke. Rav Wolbe right here spoke something very, very fascinating. It does seem like an elementary sin of Light, I admit. I'm coming from Rav Wolbe. When we discuss Light's mistake, his sidkus we see. He's looking for guests. He's willing to give up his life to protect the guests. Amazing, he got from Avram Avinu. But then he makes a mistake. He sends out his daughters, a prustim. I said the Ramban calls Light out for this pruskite that he's not makbid on zima. He's willing to send his daughters out. Rav Wolbe spoke here that here he learned something from his Rebbe, tremendous kindness. But there was an improportion, doing the kindness in a way that here was inappropriate. Rav Wolbe spoke here about a Talmud. Now it's interesting that Rav Wolbe chose here to bring this out. It looks to us like an elementary mistake of Light to send out his daughters. Rav Wolbe spoke about a Talmud Avada learns from the Rebbe. But the Talmud has to have their own intelligence to understand how the Rebbe would behave here. Light Tak is a tremendous sidkus he learned from Avram. But Rav Wolbe says the Talmud didn't understand Midas Atzmai, that his Rebbe wouldn't have been naig this way. It's like a certain imitation of the Rebbe. He's doing exactly like the Rebbe, except that's not how the Rebbe would be naig here. I would have brought out, from here it's hard for me to bring it out. I want to bring it out from a different Rashi. Rav Wolbe brought it out here. I want to bring it out the same point from a different Rashi. It fascinates me that Light, it says, Kol Alayla Rashi brings, Light was saying Sanegoyra. Light was defending Stoim the whole night. That night, he has the angels by him, and the angels tell him we're destroying Sidon, and Light spent the night saying good on Sidon. He mamish, it says, Kol Alayla Rashi brings, Light is saying Saneger. Where do you think he got that from? What was Avram Avinu's midah? Ayin Tov. And the ganze Nacht, Light is saying good on Sidon. And there, Rav Wolbe doesn't say it on that Rashi, but on the Rashi that Light the ganze Nacht is saying Sanegoyra, he's Pashat. The Rashi is in Pasuk Yud Beis, I believe. Rashi in Pasuk Yud Beis. Like that, Rashi brings a Medrash Agada. They're doing such terrible things. Who gave you a mouth to say good things? Fascinating. The ganze Nacht, there was a big night. And there's a kitchug on the whole city of Sidon. You know what Light was doing the whole night? He was saying good about the city. He was saying Sanegoyra. That doesn't sound like Avram Avinu. The Ayin Tov, the ganze Nacht that the Malachim was staying by light, it's a stressful night. The city's threatening to lynch light. There's so much kaching. You know what light was busy? He was saying good about Sodom. They're good people. I'm telling you, they're really good. And it's a taina on light. The Malachim tell light, a chutzpah. Who gave you a mouth? It's wrong. See something wrong and recognize it for wrong. Here is the word of a person taking a midah he learned by his Rebbe, and there's a midah of Ayin Tov. But a person has to understand every situation. And in this situation, it was a taina not to see that there was Ra. He took a midah and something he had seen by his Rebbe that has a place and a time. Rav Wolbe spoke about the Talmud's not copying the Rebbe. Rav Wolbe on the Parsha of Light spoke about a Talmud absorbing everything from his Rebbe, but he spoke about das atzmacha, your own knowledge, your own understanding. And the Talmud, there are many examples historically of great people whose Talmidim in Gevista Ifanim veered from their Rebbeim, did it different. Gufa, because they were similar to their Rebbe. They understood the lessons of the Rebbe, but they understood its applications. From their own understanding and their own studying of the matter, understood the applications. I always speak about in learning there are two types of poskim. There are people like memorize piskei halacha. They know like facts. Never ask somebody, that's not a posik, a person who memorizes facts, not a posik. They memorize like a lot of facts. That's the furthest from a posik. Because if you just memorize all the facts, a little nuance of change in the situation could be as a different psak. A paisik knows the heart and soul of the matter, knows the sugya, knows the shirish of the sugya. That's a paisik. Then they're able, by knowing the svaras and the lumdus of the sugya, to apply it to different cases. So here, a Talmud learned from his Rebbe Ayin Tov, but there's a sugya of Ayin Tov: when, how much, how to do it. And there's a taina on light to hear mamish. He looks so like his Rebbe, the ganze Nacht. He's saying good about Snaim. But there's a taina who gave you a pischein peda doing nevala. It's not the appropriate thing to say good on them. It's interesting. His Rebbe Avram Avinu, when he was mispalel for Sedaim, didn't say that he said good on Sedaim. He said, let tzaddikim be megan on the city. Light took this to people doing Ra and didn't call out the Ra. He started saying good zachen about them, and there's a taina. They're Isaac and Nevala. Stop saying good zachen on them. Fascinating. Light is told by the angels. These malachim tell light, ki mashchisim anachtos hamokim hazeh. The angels tell light that we're destroying the city. Ki godlet tzarkosas pnei Hashem, and Hashem sent us to destroy the city. Light then speaks to his son-in-laws. Vayetze Light v'yidaber el chasanav. Light speaks to his son-in-laws. Light chebenaisav, the one who married his daughters. Rashi says they had ersin, not nesuin. Vayoyim, he said, Kumu sumin ha'makom hazeh, we have to leave. We have to leave Sedaim. Ki mashkas Hashem es ha'ir. Hashem's going to destroy the city. Hashem's taking Sedaim down. So we got to leave. We have to leave Sedaim. Vayikim mitzachek be'enei chasanav. It was a joke in their eyes. Vayikim mitzachek be'enei chasanav. They didn't believe him. His son-in-laws lost their lives. They didn't believe him. It was kimitzachek. It was a joke. Be'enei chasanav. What's the pshat? It was a joke. What's kimitzachek? I'm sure he looked very serious. Like fascinating pasuk that Light tells his son-in-law Sedaim's going to be destroyed, and to them it was a mitzachek, as a joke. Their son-in-laws didn't believe him to the point they lost their lives. His son-in-laws gave up their lives. They didn't believe him. And here the malachim tell Light, it's intense night. The malachim tell Light we're destroying Sedaim. Light says to his Eidim, Chevra, Sedaim's going to be destroyed tonight. It was a joke in their eyes. They didn't believe Light. They didn't believe it was a joke. The shaila is, what's the pshat that it was a joke in their eyes? It doesn't seem like much of a joking matter. And here they think it's a tzchaik. I wonder, I want to offer a pshat There is what's written. I want to offer a pshat. Very interesting. The Torah tells us, very funny thing to think he's joking about. He says the city is being destroyed. He leaves. It doesn't sound much of a joke. I want to offer, it could be, I remember seeing a lashon in the Medrash. I haven't seen it in years. I looked, it's not right here. So I have to find where I saw this lashon. I thought I had in the Medrash that it was a joke in their eyes, is the pshat that he always joked about. This was the running joke. It was a joke in their eyes because they always joked about this. So why they always joke? A guy once described me being by a rave, an inappropriate matzav. He described in the air, you sense this is all not real. He said there's a tension of something that's fake, that's going to be exposed as a farce. And it was a joke because they knew the whole time in Sdaim, this world built against chesed and kindness, against godliness, was an existence that won't last. They always joked about Sdaim's demise. So as Kimitzachik ben Chasanav, this was years. They didn't take him seriously. Yeah, we know. They always joked. He had that was their running joke about when is Sodom going under. The sense being in something that's devoid of godliness, this isn't going to last. There's a deep sense of that this is only temporary. This is not eternal. So it was a joke be'enei chasanav because it was the joke they always said. Okay, they chuckled when the Shveis. Now, they knew it's serious. That's why they always joked about it. They knew it's serious. But it wasn't this time any more than the last 5 years that we've joked about it. That was the mitzachek beinei chasanav. That's the joke. We always tell each other that joke. He said, guys, it's going under tonight's time. And they chuckled. We know. We always. When is this ending? The sense of part of something that's not true, that's not about emes, is that it's temporary, that it's all gonna blow away. It's all gonna disappear. That's the sense when we're involved in sheker, something that's not true. So it's funny the mitzachek beinei chasanav is not because they didn't think it was real, it's because they always spoke about this. So it wasn't any different this time. So he said, it's going down tonight. Like, yeah. You're right, yeah, Shveria. We said that the last 3 years. That was kimitzachik, that was the joke, the familiar joke in the home, that they always spoke about that. Light is then told, it's time to leave Sodom. We have to get out of Sodom. Vayismameh. And Light, the famous Shalshelas, Light is reluctant to leave. Now, what Reb Miller explained to us, and the fact that the Malachim say to him that you can't look back. Himolid al nafshech al tabed acharecha, don't look back. And we're taught as little kids that Light's wife looks back by Yehinitziv Melech and she dies. What they're told is that if you move weiter and you move away from this and you renounce and reject what Sdaim is, but you disconnect it, you could be saved. If you disconnect from this, you could be saved. Even at that point, Vayismameya, Light struggles to disconnect. It's an avodah to disconnect. He had lived in Sdaim, and he didn't even have the full shittus of Sdaim, but Abifarti was in Sdaim. And he was impacted by Sodom. And upon telling him the joke of his home that it's going to be destroyed, which he always said this is bound to blow up because there's nothing real here, but it was so hard to leave. By Yismameya, he struggles, and they have to grab him out. And they're told, don't look back means renounce this, give up on it. The glancing back is the seeing, is the wistful looking, but I like it. But there's good stuff here. And he's told, if you look back, then you're still there. If you look back, then the only way you can survive, and your zchus is get out of here. Get out and renounce that which you know, and you sense the sheker of this life that's not godly. You know the sheker. And at the point that you move away and don't look back, and firmly and commit and understand this isn't right, so then then you could be saved. And Light's wife, who looks back, who she's still connected, the looking back is the pshat, the wistful. Aber it's geschmack, that wistful looking back. So then she's weiter, she's still a fan, she's still part, she couldn't pull herself out. She's wistfully looking back and remembering, but there's so much quality here. So then she's weiter part of Sodom, that which is devoid of godliness. And for looking back, for looking back, she turns to Netziv Melech, she's still part. The zchus of Lot and his mishpach was an opportunity to grab on and run towards what they know. Run towards what they know. I want to tell you something that I made an observation years ago, and I want to share this with you. I think there's an avodah that you and I could do in our own lives. When I was learning in Eretz Yisrael, I made an observation. I saw guys come to the Mir Yeshiva who were shtickle like Bali Tshuva at pass, and they would run past a lot of us guys that were like always steiging. They'd run past us. Like 2 years in, the guy's a bigger masmid, bigger tzaddik. I was wondering, like, we're also running. What's the guy running past? And people would come who were more fresh, who had pasts and history. They'd run past us guys who were learning from youth. And I was yared to something and seeing them run past, which I think is the inyan here of light. That light is told, don't look back. It's as follows. I'm going to use a sports analogy. That's my warped mind. I asked Mechila. In baseball, a guy hits a ground ball to the third baseman. There are two guys who run to first. You know the guy, Gabriel, who looks up and sees the guy. He's running, but he's like checking out. The guy who runs to first, who gets there safely, just takes off. He doesn't watch. The spectators watch the play. I got to get to first base. It slows you down. Menachem, you know what I'm talking about? The guy like hits the ball. He's watching the fielder while he's running. You run slower like that. Whatever he does, he does. You put your head down and run to first base. You get there much faster. It slows you down. That millisecond, these are bang, bang plays. The good, smart ball player hits it up. You know what I'm talking about. You hit it and you run to first. Don't look. You don't know. He fielded it clean. You're not watching the game. You'll watch somebody else. You're playing this game. Get to first base. When you're watching, the guy could stumble a little bit, even slowly throw it. He still gets you out because you slow down. Your job was to run to first base. What I was yared in Eretz Yisrael is that a person steiging, but he hasn't decided something. He's hedging his bets. Good, I want to learn. There's a lot of geschmack of it. The guy who made a decision, he's not looking back. He's not looking, he made a decision, what's taiv, what's good. And he's running after something, b'chol koichai. He's running after, he's not looking over there while he's running over here. Light's wife looks back while she runs. There's a very good visual for us all. She's looking back while she's running. You don't run that fast. You're there. If you're looking back while you're running, then you're there too. And what Light's given an opportunity. This is an opportunity Light has that the angels give him a chance to say, you always, and they've been joking for years, they know the truth, Mishpacha. They know the truth. And you have an opportunity to announce and decide and run with focus, with energy towards. That's what I saw in the guy who runs by the others. He decided something. He's not leaving it. He's not a free agent he's decided. He's running like a man who's found something and towards something. And running there, b'chol koichai. I picture the Light's wife who's running there but looking there. And in all our lives, we all have that visual. Is very, very dear to me. The visual of Light's wife running there but looking there. It's the guy running to first base and a cook at the third baseman. He's running to first. You're much slower. You're just slower. It's just the facts. You don't run as fast. You're running here, looking there, you're a slow runner. When you run there, look there. That's where you need to go. That's where you get to. Run and go there. That picture of Light's wife who's running to safety but looking back at Sodom, wistfully looking at Sodom. You just don't run fast enough. She's swallowed up by Sodom. And there's a beginning in all our lives of a decision of pursuing that which we want, that which we hold, and we're not looking to the other place. We know and we've decided, and we're running somewhere, not looking over there. It's interesting that I was thinking, I was visualizing Light's wife, thinking about the tag offices, the filters. The guy is running somewhere, and I'm not looking there while I'm running here. I've decided, I have a focus, I have a vision, I have a plan of what I want, and I'm running here, looking here. We sang in the shul, and many shuls, we sang that we know what we want. We know what we want. We have a focus and a desire and a chukka, and we're running for it. We're running towards it. We're not running as half-baked runners. We're not running to first looking at third. We're not running away from Stein looking at Stein. We're running away from Stein and looking where we're running to. That picture, that Light's wife is, I'll read the pasuk. I'll read first. The pasuk says, Himolad al nafshecha, save yourself, al tabed acharecha, don't look back. Don't look back. And then later on we're told about Light's wife, Vatabet ishtay me'acharav. Vatinitziv melech. She turns around. She's running. She's taka running, but she's running while she's looking the other place. You run much slower like that. You don't run fast enough. I observed that in the mirror. I observed that the ones that were running, they were running towards, they weren't, I don't know, let me try. One guy's running and he's looking over there. You don't run as fast, you're much slower. The other guy runs by you like you're standing still. Because he's running and he's not looking over there. And in our own lives, in our own pursuits, in our own wants, when we keep an eye on what we want, and we run in a way looking at what we want with a tremendous focus on what we want, a decision. I think of a world of light who they joked for years. That's how I learned Pshat in the Pasuk Mitzachi ben Chasanav. It was the joke of the family. They all knew something, and the people surrounded by a sheker know a sheker when they see it. But they didn't make a decision. So Nusi, you know it's sheker, so get out and run where you need to go, be where you need to go, and pursue what you need to pursue. Before it, it's by Yismameya. Light has a tough time pulling him with all that he knows. He knew it for years, and then the angels tell him what he knew all the years. Vayismameya, he finds it hard to pull himself out. Even after the angels, his son-in-laws, it's the old joke we know already. This is Light, we know this joke already. We always talk about this. And Light himself, who wasn't told by the angels, he has a tough time pulling. We have to look at what's true. Look at what's true, look at our goals, and pursue them with a tremendous focus on the things that we want, a tremendous energy, a tremendous passion on what we want, not with the uncertainties. We can be certain and we can run with a certainty. That's what I wanted to share. I think it's a very, very good picture. Light's wife running and looking back is a good picture to the way not to run to first base. Look at first base, focus on first base, and put your head down and run there. There's something that we could do, and with a tremendous sense of purpose, we should run to the places away from the stones to godliness. To Beis Avram, to the Midas of Avram, to the house of Avram, to the ideals of loyalty to Hashem, with a tremendous, tremendous sense of purpose and awareness of this is what we want, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to be. It's interesting. I'm not here to dar shit about filters. People complain when they make filters, it slows down the phone. I love that visual. I happen to like that. If I put on a filter, it slows down the machine. So I like that because you're always going to have l'chatchilas and b'di'evids in all our lives, every decision. Anything I do, if I don't have a filter, my l'chatchila is my surfing, my web surfing. My b'di'evid is my ruchnis. With the filter, so my ruchnis is l'chatchila, my web surfing. It's always a question, what am I pursuing? And then based on what I'm pursuing, what fits where? What's first place? When we run with starkheit, then everything's in line, things are in sync. I know what I want. So then I know what's my lechatchila b'di'evet, what priority. We all have much in our life. And they're all the aspect, our vacations are part of the service of Hashem, our going to work's part of it. That's not the opposite of running to serve Hashem. Chalila v'ches. A servant of Hashem has a job, he makes money for his mishpacha, obviously. A servant of Hashem takes vacations, obviously. A servant of Hashem is healthy, obviously. He eats, obviously. A servant of Hashem has a lot of aspects. But when the focus is right, they're all in the right place. The amounts and the way, and it's all in the because I know what I'm going after. So everything's in its place, in its correct amount and place, and there's all the details. There's one pursuit and one focus, and things fit towards that focus. When the person's hedging their bets, so then things are at a priority. You're running there, looking there. You're running there, looking there. So then things are at a priority, but it slows down. You don't know what's priority, it slows down this. But if I'm running there to go there, so it's slowing down this. But I have what's l'chatchila, what's b'di'ev. I have priorities. I have things in order, what I'm pursuing. So all of us should be zeicha to run towards Achashalti Meis Hashem, to run to service of Hashem, and with the full awareness that we're not looking any other. We know what we want. We know where we're headed. To run like the Malach said to run. Don't look to the other. Don't look back at Stom. Don't run looking at Stom. Run looking at Yerushalayim, at Hashem, at Beis Avram. Run looking the right way. Ashukayach.